This is the Hockey Podcast Network, your home for hockey talk on every team in the NHL.
Welcome to Offside by a Mile, the podcast for anything and everything Colorado Avalanche, and the official Avs podcast for the Hockey Podcast Network. Well, Jared, we jinxed it real bad last week. Remember how we had the conversation about how we haven't had snow here yet?
Oh, I was gonna mention that as well.
Yeah, Jared fucked it up. It's now -7, as in like 19 Fahrenheit today. Snow on the ground. You know, we've had 2 bouts of snow this week because, we're dumb. And we talked about how our weather was too good.
Yeah.
It's not anymore. Anyway,
Classic.
God damn it, Calgary. I'm sure it's the same as Denver. But yeah, I mean, been a pretty quiet week. I was thinking about it yesterday, kind of like, what the hell are we going to talk about this week? But really, everything happened on Monday.
Right.
Everything. Like, nothing really in the league has happened really substantially.
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet
since Monday. Like, there's been a few, like the Brendan Gallagher signing out of nowhere,
right?
Which was like, well, because that was the 14th, which would be, I guess, Wednesday. Tuesday they tweet talks have stalled. Brendan Gallagher and Montreal Canadiens, they're far apart. They can't get things done. Very next day, wham, here you go.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that happens often in the hockey world. It's like, oh, nothing much has happened. Then all of a sudden, boom, there it is.
But the news, and again, it was another week of Avalanche praise on Twitter. And
Sakic praise
on Twitter.
The memes.
Man, the memes on Avalanche Twitter are just, I'm fucking digging it.
Yeah, it's been good.
But Joe Sakic, not GM of the year, fleeces GM of the year, Lou Lamoriello, for Devon Toews for 2 second-round picks. Now, I don't know if we want to, compare apples to oranges or not, but anybody remember the last time a player was traded for 2 second-round picks in 2019 and 2020? Andreas Athanasiou to Edmonton, who is no longer an Edmonton Oiler because they realized they fucked up. Now, if you look at what Edmonton received with Athanasiou versus what the Avalanche received with Devon Toews, there's 2 very different players. Athanasiou was more of a gamble. Hopefully he was good. Hopefully he could skate with McDavid, stuff like that.
Glimpses of,
Devon Toews is a legitimate stud on D.
Yep.
Now, he's not a stud like Pietrangelo necessarily. Like, he doesn't have a track record. And this, like, again, when talking about contract stuff and when looking at the fact that he's arbitration eligible. Cool words. Yeah. Eligible. The fact that he signed up for arbitration, the fact that he is scheduled for October 31st, Halloween.
Right.
We don't need to freak out about money because he only really has a season and a bit of NHL experience. But the season and a bit of NHL experience that he does have, man. We talked about this, right? The New York Islanders are a defensively sound team.
Mm-hmm.
So, from the outside looking in, now, again, I'm not going to pretend like I've watched Devon Toews for 40 games of his NHL career. Like, I watched a couple games of him during the postseason this year when we were in the bubble and all that good stuff, right? Like, I can't say he stuck out like a sore thumb to me, good or bad. But one thing I do know is that he didn't stick out like a sore thumb, which is a good thing for a defenseman.
Right.
And on a team that's solid defensively, if you're one of those 6 guys, you're not a bad player.
Yeah, you're doing your job, right?
But then you look at his advanced stats that, again, Tom from Blue Notes sent us nicely from Jay Fresh.
What a beauty.
man, he is just what we needed.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm not gonna get too excited. I'm not gonna hold my breath that he's all of a sudden like the number one defensive guy we need.
Yeah.
But man, those advanced stats numbers look mighty tasty.
It's pretty appetizing for sure.
If you're an Avs fan. And then again, because of his small track record of NHL success, he's not gonna get a big monstrous contract. I know I saw Dater kind of suggest probably something Graves-like, which again, that happened this week, technically Monday.
Yep.
Our episode was recorded and out already by the time this all happened, but Ryan Graves signs. And what did he end up getting? He got
3.16666.
Yeah, there you go. For 3, right?
Yeah, for 3 years.
Right,
yep.
and again, man, Sakic nailing it.
Solid.
Like,
super solid.
Pretty decent bridge for Graves. Super value contract for the Avs if he does even 75% of what he did last year.
Right.
Doesn't send him to arbitration. You don't have to argue about plus or minus.
Right.
You get to keep the band together. You get to keep the band together with Makar and the guy and Landeskog and the guys that are coming up, right? Because it's not a monstrous deal, right? Stuff like that. It's fantastic to see. It's fantastic to see with Graves, and if they can get Devon Toews at around that 3.25 mark, they basically replaced Nikita Zadorov for the same money with Devon Toews for 2 second-round picks.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, yes, Joe Sakic fleeced Lou Lamoriello, but he's not the first and only GM to fleece a GM right now for cap reasons.
Right.
We talked about it kind of last week, right, with Ellis. No, not Ellis. The Columbus guy. Why can't I think of his name?
Oh God.
Yep, killing the game here. Whatever his name is, I'll figure it out eventually. But for a 5th-round pick,
right.
Ryan Murray,
There you go.
The Devils get Ryan Murray from the Blue Jackets for a 5th-round pick. Like again, Ryan Murray's injury prone. Like it's not that like he's worth a ton. But then you look at what Nate Schmidt was worth to Vancouver.
Right.
Nate Schmidt went from Vegas to Vancouver for purely cap relief reasons for a single third-round pick.
Yeah.
Now, you can look at that, and you can look at Sakic and be like, dude, what the fuck? But that's a $6 million player, not a $3.2 million player or whatever he ends up signing for.
Right. Money's a big commodity right now.
Money's a huge commodity right now.
Yeah.
Right? Like Tyler Johnson is a waiver. He was a waivered player.
What in fucking world are we living in where he can clear waivers?
Yeah. And the only reason he cleared waivers was because he's too much money. And he's making a little more money than the production he had last year. And he's making a lot more money than his production last year.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also on a team where he, I think, was a third liner in Tampa, where he'd be a first or second liner on a lot of NHL teams right now.
Yeah.
So that number probably goes up with more ice time, blah, blah, blah. Better teammates on the line. Whatever you want to talk about. But still, Tyler Johnson cleared waivers, is still a Tampa Bay Lightning because nobody wants to take that shit for free.
No one wants to help those boys out.
Right? And this is the funny part of this week. And this is the funny part about Twitter in general. And this is especially the funny part about Vancouver Twitter. They don't know whether to hate the Colorado Avalanche or hate themselves or hate Jim Benning or love Jim Benning. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know. There's people on Canucks Twitter that have tweeted that, oh man, Jim Benning just saved his job with this trade. And then there's people that are like, why did they even help the Golden Knights? Dude, they got Nate Schmidt for a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah. I mean,
I absolutely agree that Jim Benning just saved his job. In my opinion, from the outside looking in.
Chris Tanev out and fucking Nate Schmidt in.
That's a solid upgrade for a 3rd-round pick.
It's pretty good.
Right? And this is the reason. Like, a lot of people in Vancouver are hating what happened with their free agents. right? Losing Tyler Toffoli for the deal that Toffoli signs in Montreal, which wasn't a ton of money, right? That was where is it? $4 million or something, if I can remember right. Tyler Toffoli, 4.25 for 4 years. While Vancouver is somewhat up against it because of the cap recapture with Luongo, which every single time I hit their cap friendly page and see that, I laugh because it's funny. And when it happened, people on Twitter were like, it's going to be funny when Vancouver's the only team that ends up getting hit with a cap recapture penalty.
Yeah.
Just because it's classic Vancouver, right? And with the amount of crap, if you want to call it that they went through with that cap recapture and just what happened afterwards in the hockey world, I believe that they might be the only team that ends up dealing with this, right? Because, there's Shea Weber, there's Marian Hossa was supposed to be that. And guess what? He's allergic to his equipment.
Yeah.
Right? Stuff like that. And yes, it was proven by the NHL, but it still happened. And rather than the Blackhawks getting nailed with the Hossa cap recapture, Arizona has Hossa on IR forever, right? Stuff like that. Weber, PK Subban, actually Subban's not that bad. But yeah, Weber's like that for sure, right? Like there's plenty of guys like that around, and it's probably going to be only Vancouver that gets nailed with it, and it's hilarious.
Perfect.
But right, they have that. They have all kinds of other stuff. They couldn't necessarily go nuts, but people are losing their minds, and I kind of agree with them losing their minds about Toffoli signing for $4.25 in Montreal and why Vancouver couldn't make that work.
Yeah.
And Toffoli said it too. Like, he was disappointed. He thought he was going to be a Canuck next year.
Well, I mean, it's like he had a pretty decent impact on that team. Like, that was like a really good pickup, and it was highlighted in a lot of situations for sure. So,
but man, being able to afford Nate Schmidt at $6 million, he's worth $6 million.
Oh, for sure.
This is the thing that's crazy about this. Tyler Johnson, or if you look, like I've been talking with our friends, like Johnny Gaudreau, right? Like some of these guys are not worth what they're getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Johnson, especially, in my opinion, like you can't look at Tyler Johnson's like 30-something points last year and be like, man, he's worth $6 million.
Yeah.
Johnny Gaudreau, I think, had 50 last year, so it's like, he's maybe around that $6 million number, but then we know as semi-Flames fans that he does nothing in the playoffs, which means he's very hard to, justify.
Right.
But Nate Schmidt is a $6 million player that is worth $6 million or more, and they got him for a third-round pick.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Right? It kind of makes me go back to last year with Patrick Marleau in the Toronto, where they had to pay Carolina a first-round pick to take him.
Yeah.
That is definitely what Tampa Bay is looking at for Tyler Johnson. Just because.
Yeah.
Right? Like, when Vegas can sit there, and this is Vegas is doing, right? And like this is where that half or quarter of Twitter or whatever you want to call it, that's getting mad at Vancouver for helping Vegas out, has some grief because they're like, man, these teams are screwing themselves. Let them sit there and stew. And Bill Daly said, like, if the team's over the cap, they're not playing.
Right.
We'll see. I'll believe it when I see it. But, I mean, I'm pretty sure that the cap number comes off the next year's cap if you go over or something. Like, but at the same time, you can't start a season over the cap. So, like, I'm super interested. If we get there, it is going to be a shit show.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're going to see some even more messed up movement for sure.
And that's why I can understand where Twitter's coming from in the, like, dude, why'd you help him at all? But if you're Vancouver, man, if you're Jim Benning, you got to hop on that.
Yeah,
right?
That's a big opportunity, man. And like, that's someone who can carry their decor for, the next several years.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
sure. So
right,
and then you got fucking Quinn Hughes with them. Like, that's big.
That's what they're talking about, right? Like, can you, like, Nate Schmidt and Quinn Hughes side by side for the next 5 years? Whew.
That's pretty solid, man.
That's gonna be nice to look at if you're a Canucks fan.
Yeah.
Right, and I don't know. I just find it very odd that it's part of, like, it's Vancouver Twitter in a nutshell, but, like, man, they are a crabby bunch. And they don't know how to have nice things.
It's years of,
like, no wonder they riot.
Years of depression.
maybe.
Yeah, no wonder they ride.
Right? Like, they hate anything. They hate everything, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just like, it's funny to me, right? And I don't know. I just, from the outside looking in, God, it's fun. But back to us, like Devon Toews. Yeah, you can argue maybe that you could have got a better player in Nate Schmidt, but I don't know if you can. Like, I don't know if he is. Like, Nate Schmidt's still kind of a, as much as I say he's worth $6 million, I mean, he's worth $6 million over the 5 years, right? Or how much is left? Is it 5? Yeah, 5 seasons left. With modified no trades, all this stuff, right? Is Devon Toews worth that? Like, if you compared the two and you said Devon Toews signs a 5-year deal for $6 million a year, who would I rather have? For this Avs team, I think I want Toews.
I mean, yeah, I think it fits the template a little bit more from like the decor perspective. I feel like that's a really good, especially because, you know, Zadorov is gone. I feel like that's a really good replacement, and like, a seemingly more stable replacement.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of coming from too. Like, yeah, Toews isn't going to replace the physical aspect, but I also don't think he's going to get beat. Right? Like, we talked about it this year, right? Cale Makar on some nights was the most physical defenseman in front of the net.
True.
For the Avs.
Yeah.
Which is an absolute joke for the rest of the 5.
Yeah.
Absolutely a joke. The only guy that shouldn't be able to compete, that maybe gets beat, is Gerard. Like, physical. Right?
Oh,
like
yeah,
that,
physically,
like,
yeah.
Physically, on that and on that 6, to me, it's Gerard and Makar at the bottom. Yeah. And yet, Makar has the heart where he was sometimes the most physical guy we had.
Right.
Zadorov should have been the most physical guy. On most nights, he wasn't, and that's why he's not here anymore.
Yeah.
Devon Toews is not going to give you the physical aspect of, like, huge body checks at the blue line, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But if he can clear the front of the net, if he has the heart like Makar does on certain nights, you know, stuff like that, he is the more defensive guy.
Right.
And compared to Nate Schmidt, I would rather have the more defensive guy on this decor because we have the offense covered.
Yeah, completely.
Right? And I like it. And especially if you can get him on a 3-year deal at 3.25. Whew. Yeah. That's perfect for this team, this roster, this salary cap world. Right?
Right. And I honestly, I don't think we would want to go much longer than that. Just based on there could be... It seems like there's going to be a turnover.
Well, yeah, and Bowen Byram, Timmins, you know, they're coming.
Right.
Hopefully,
and like
Barron.
I don't know how long, you know, after these 3 years, Johnson on his last 3 years might, you know, it's going to be a lesser deal if we sign him, or he, you know, we part ways.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be a good fit, honestly, from a pay-per-view perspective.
It's just, man, it's Sakic crushing every time, getting the right guy.
It's just seemed really legit. All his moves over the last 2 seasons now have really seemed intelligent.
Yeah,
and not emotional moves. Not like I don't even really know how many of these moves I can even nitpick of being like, oh, like why'd you do that now?
Obviously it's easy. It's easy to, like we always seem to do on this podcast, get way too fanboy on Sakic moves. But, like, again, in the last 14 months, actually more than that, I guess it'd be like 18 months.
It's hard to judge.
How many moves has Sakic fucked up?
I don't even, that's what I mean. Right, I don't even know if I can name one.
We talked to the Arizona guys, Corey and Richie, and they brought up... what's his pickle that Sakic got rid of for cap reasons. And I'm like, I don't even care. I don't care. Right? I'll figure out his name in a sec. But, right? Like, because of what Sakic did around everything, like adding players, adding Belmar, adding all kinds of players, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what he did to move out. Like, yeah, maybe Soderbergh, that's the one.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, did they lose that trade? Like, Kevin Connaught wasn't great, but at the same time, they moved He moved $3.5 million out the door, and obviously hindsight's 20/20. But like moving $3.5 million out the door last summer, looks brilliant to what moving out Cap this year means.
Right, and there's a difference between those lower end trades.
Yeah.
If you're
Impact wise,
in quote losing the trade, it's like, yeah, but what did we gain through that trade that helped in other trades or other signings? It's all irrelevant, right?
Exactly. Anyway, back to Toews versus Schmidt, right? Like if you look at Joe Fresh, Freaking superstore clothing brand up here. Ridiculous. Anyway, Jay Fresh has Nate Schmidt at a projected wins above replacement at 1.1. Devon Toews, he's got about a win replacement of 2.1.
All right.
Now that doesn't mean he's a double better player, but that, like, again, you're looking there and you're going, man, maybe like defensively he's a better guy, right? Devon Toews, even strength offense 94%, even strength defense 88%. Like, again, because of his limited sample size, you're like, man, is this guy the best defenseman in the league? Like, the best two-way guy in the league? Like, what? Yeah. And I'm not about to be like, holy shit, guys. Like, Joe Sakic just got the best defenseman in the league out of Lou Lamoriello for 2 second-round picks. I'm not going to say that. But if you don't think that he upgraded on Zadorov, you're nuts. And I don't think anybody's saying that, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't. But it's just looking at that trade, man. That is definitely stud-worthy. And it's just funny that it's with Lou Lamoriello, who just won GM of the Year, and now he's fucked.
Yeah.
Like, that team, how they're going to sign everybody they need to sign?
Yeah, they're going to have an interesting time.
Because what? They have $8.9 million in cap space today, Sunday, the 18th. They need to sign Matt Barzal.
Should be cheap, right?
And Ryan Pollock.
Should be also cheap, right?
Also cheap. Also arbitration eligible. Like,
yeah.
I don't know how they're going to do that without moving somebody else.
Right. For another kind of similar deal.
And that's what Lou Lamoriello said. He's like, Ryan Pollock's a little bit more proven, and that's why they kept him rather than keeping Devon Toews.
Yeah, that's fair.
But they're not trash, but they're overpriced young guy is our gain for sure.
Right.
And, I don't know what arbitration is going to look like if Toews goes.
If he gets there yet.
But I really don't expect it to get there. And, I tweeted that out too when the schedule came out.
Yeah.
Especially the fact that it's still 2 weeks away. I really don't expect it to get there. But we'll see, right? Like, Ryan Graves applied for arbitration too, and that was super early to get done, right?
Right.
And again, right, like, I don't know necessarily what the behind the scenes was on this trade. Like, I don't know if Sakic had talked to him prior to the trade to make sure that they were, at least Devon Toews was at least willing to sign here.
Right.
I can't imagine he wouldn't be. Why wouldn't you want to play with Cale Makar or Eric Johnson or
the Stanley Cup
Ryan
contending
Graves,
team for
that
sure?
Too, right. So I just love it, man. I love it. And then again, you sit there and look at a team like the Islanders, and you're like, man, good luck. Good luck.
Yeah. And I mean, same with the whole Sod trade and all that. It seems to me, and Sakic has kind of relayed his thoughts on that you learn from experience too, right? And going through this playoffs that we just went through, you can tell, like, okay, yeah, injuries happen. It sucked. It fucking sucked. We lost a lot of key players. We had to bring up, obviously, the lesser players into our roster to fill those holes. Lots of these moves just seem to bolster that support system, that huge depth. Like we talked all season long how, yeah, we got great depth, but it showed in the playoffs that, yeah, once you, and I mean, time off and all this shit probably had a factor in that. But just adding these more and more players like this is just helping us to cement, a possibility that if we have this injury trouble again, we can make it through. We have all these other pieces that are coming up, and we have all our big prospect system that's coming up now too. Like it's It's filling in all the holes that we noticed last year. And I can't commend it enough because it's going to make a difference.
Classic offside by a mile. Totally just going on a rant and forgetting our duties to the network.
Sidebar.
We mentioned Tom, totally just like threw it over my head. But this week's internal promo for the Hockey Podcast Network is Tom and Wags from the Blue Notes podcast. And like they say in their ad, voted best podcast in the Hockey Podcast Network. So check out this ad or check out this promo and go give them some love.
Oh, hi there. Pleased to meet you. My name is Tom Franklin, one half of the Blue Notes podcast and the Hockey Podcast Network. We've got that 2019 Stanley Cup power too sweet to be sour, and we're also your home for the best Blues analysis.
Yes, it's a Bruin, but he's going to help the power play, and that's what people need to understand. And they're going to look at it and say, oh well, Justin Falk was supposed to help the power play as well. Torrey Krug is legitimately going to help the power play.
Felt like Newport was ready to go into this offseason and use Pietrangelo as an example and say, okay, we're going to play chicken here with the COVID cap here. Someone is going to give Pietrangelo his money. We also have great guests from here at home. St. Louis Post-Dispatch, St. Louis Blues beat writer Jim Thomas, the organist for the St. Louis Blues, Jeremy Boyer, and around the world.
Yo, Blues fans, it's Gerard, the Dutch Blues fan, all the way from the Netherlands.
And no other podcast can say they have a Hawaiian hockey correspondent, but we do.
Aloha! I'm Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, and this is my Aloha commentary.
Plus, a little self-deprecating humor thrown in there. One of our new Blue Note Selkie level COVID mask, if I can turn it the right way there so I can properly sell it. I am failing my Price is Right model audition right here. This is terrible. He has opted for the neck gator version of this, and I'm still failing my Price is Right audition. Fuck it. Voted the best podcast by our peers in the Hockey Podcast Network. Follow Tom and Wags on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Blue Notes Pod, and be sure to subscribe to Blue Notes wherever you get your podcasts from. This is Tom Franklin reminding you to not be a chump and always play to the whistle.
Yeah, and especially this year, too, because we don't know what's going to happen, right? Gary Bettman came out a few weeks ago and said, dude, January 1st was their goal to start the season.
Right.
Seeing rumblings of like, oh, November 14th camp starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking right.
It's so hard to believe anything right now.
Like, dude, that's a month away.
Yeah, and I mean, we did kind of say this before they got like the whole bubble ready and everything, but also that did, drag on for quite a while. Like, oh, it's going to be this day. Oh, no, we got more shit to do. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Yep. So, yeah, it's hard to believe. I want to believe, but like, we've talked about that so many times. Like, if we don't have fans, like how the fuck is this feasible financially? I just don't see it.
Yeah, dude.
So it's going to be a struggle. And just like, I don't know if we want to talk a bit about the proposed
I was just pulling it up.
Canadian division shit and all this. Oh, God.
Well, so before we get there, though, what I wanted to talk about was like the AHL may not have a season.
Mm.
And that, I think, is something
Right.
that people keep kind of not necessarily
I
thinking
haven't
about.
thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much.
And, right, like, so the reason I have had it brought up is because as a Leafs fan, right, like they're talking about, especially with the Joe Thornton signing and stuff from this week, is what is the NHL going to do if the AHL is not a thing this year? Because this is the other thing, right? Like they're not going to have a bubble. At least with this proposed realignment, they're not planning on bubbles.
Right.
Right? They're planning on travel kind of similar to the way the MLB and the NFL are traveling, which we all kind of watched, and it's not exactly the best no corona theory or way to do it.
Right.
Generally speaking, it gets in there somehow. Somebody fucks it up, whatever. We'll see what happens. But if you're going to have non-bubbles, quote unquote, but you're going to have a bubble in that division, right? You're going to have it so that only those 8 teams or whatever it ends up being, 9 teams, play each other. Well, you can't then have your AHL team playing in another bubble.
Right.
Or in another, cohort or whatever you want to call that. You means you're going to have extra players on the roster. Well, if you have extra players on the roster, we're already looking at how fucked up teams are with cap. That's clearly not going to end up falling under the $81.5 million. You're going to have some sort of buffer.
Yeah, some kind of, yeah.
Well, if you're at the Avs and you're looking at this, right? Now, maybe right now they don't have any NHL backups signed if you look at cap friendly, right?
Right.
We obviously know there's like Martin Couch, Shane Bowers, Sheldon Dries, but like Logan O'Connor. Those aren't necessarily NHL players like the Belmars and stuff like that, like the Nietos like we had last year, right? Or Colin Wilson, players that were brought in for that kind of move, right? What is going to happen if the NHL decides, okay, rather than having 13 forwards, 7 defensemen, and 2 goalies, we're going to let you have a buffer of 15 forwards, 9 defensemen or 8 defensemen, and 3 goalies.
Yeah.
And then that's your NHL bubble. And if you need to bring anybody in, kind of like in the bubble for the playoffs, like we with Hunter Miska, right?
Right.
You got to quarantine, then you got to come in the bubble, and whatever, right? If that's the case, then it's going to be a very different looking roster or whatever you want to call it for every NHL team out there.
It's a lot of work, man.
Right? And it's just, and it's crazy too, because if the AHL doesn't happen, how are these new guys or how are these young guys going to develop outside the NHL this year? You can't just flood Europe with every guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
right? And it's stuff like this that people haven't thought of, I find, or
that's
it's
a
just,
big thing.
Maybe it's not that I haven't thought of that, just not getting talked about.
Right.
Because it's huge.
Yeah.
Right. It's huge if you look at the Avs and you're looking at the defensemen that you know.
Yeah, let's have fucking Byram not play.
Yeah, just straight up not play, straight up, or like Connor Timmins just sit around and practice only, right?
Right.
Like, this is, we kind of talked about it when it came to the draft, right? We talked about like, everybody was all antsy to get the draft done, whatever. Why? They can't play anywhere. They can't develop except for practice. And yeah, getting them acclimated to like the system, the pros, whatever the Avs want them to do can help. You see it with the rookie camps and stuff. That's what the point of them are.
Mm-hmm.
Is to be like, okay, we want you to do this. Like, we like this part about your game, but we need you to do this on defense. We need you to do this on offense. We need you to do this in the gym.
Right.
Well, how does that happen this year if they don't have the CHL to go to? They don't have the U.S. National Development Team to go to. They don't have the AHL to play in. Again, you can't just send them to Europe and play. Like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Joe Thornton's playing in Europe.
Right.
That's, he tweeted out yesterday after the Leafs signed him, whatever. He tweeted from HC Davos and getting ready to play a game with them, right? Like, there's players that are over there. We have them. Justus Anonen's playing, right?
Yeah.
Adam Warner's over there, but he's not really playing. I think he's played one game. Martin Kaut's over there.
Mm-hmm.
You can't all of a sudden take every single player that was supposed to be in the AHL and
supplement
be like,
this
hey,
fucking...
we know you guys normally have pros over there, but fuck them. We want our guys to play. We'll give you some money.
Yeah.
Especially now when teams don't want to spend more money.
Yeah. Well, that's the exact thing.
Right? And, like, obviously the NHL doesn't really have... I'm sure there's rules, but, like, they're not public rules that we know about. It's not like the cap, right? Like, I'm pretty sure there's financial dealings when it comes to, like, the Avs and Justus Anonen's team, right? Like, hey, we'll give you some extra for him to train better, whatever, right? I'm sure there's some dealings like that go on.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think there's enough dealings like the way the AHL and the NHL and the AHL work, where it's straight up like, we'll feed you all of your players, just play them in their league, right? So it's a huge thing, and if the NHL wants to run a bubble of sorts, right, like the NFL, they always have a practice team, right? They have a practice roster. It's a huge, 30, 40 players that show up. It's probably not that many, but 20 players, whatever, that just practice with the team so they can have a defense or an offense to play against whatever that's not their own.
Right.
The NHL doesn't have that.
Yeah.
That's the AHL, right? Like they have the A and the
basically.
E.
Yeah.
How the hell, like what is, and if the NHL can't make money without fans in the building, you think the AHL can?
Yeah, exactly.
You think the ECHL can? They can't even make money on a good day.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, I don't know how you run that league with good conscience, right? So it's like, on one hand, you can be like, well, you have to play because we need you. Okay.
How?
Here's another $75 to $90 million to run a bubble or something, right? Like, to think that the NHL is going to run a league starting in January 1st and have camp start in a month, you're fucked.
It's hard to believe.
Right? Like, playoffs is always like that, right? Like, the AHL, it goes into playoffs and teams end early anyway. Like, that's already a thing. Regular season is very much not like that. So, yeah, that's a whole can of worms that hasn't been dealt with already.
Right. Yeah. And
if you do it similar to the way it was for the bubbles, like that's a 30-something man roster?
Yeah,
30
or 30
or something?
Yeah, 31, 33, something like that.
That's another 7 guys.
Yeah.
That are just practicing all the time.
Yeah, just hanging out.
Right? Like, it was pretty big news with Stamkos, right?
Mm-hmm. Where
he played 2.5 minutes of ice time and was in the bubble from start to finish. And thankfully for him, he was rewarded with a Stanley Cup. But that's for a guy that wasn't even healthy. Never mind these healthy guys like Martin Kaut or whoever else, like Hunter Miska, who ended up showing up later, who was basically quarantined beforehand.
Yeah.
So that he had the opportunity to be the spare, right? And then you never even played, right? And it's stuff like that it's just like...
And,
now,
like, that's the thing, too, is, like...
that was 2 months.
Yeah, you got to think about, like, player mental health, too, right?
The reason one is that it's too much money to do a real bubble like they did for the playoffs. That was expensive. That was $150 million.
Yeah.
Plus, maybe 160. You can't do that. You can have 4 of them running everybody, right? Like that. That's $300 million, and you don't really have revenue aside from TV. Like that's crazy numbers for the NHL. But player morale, player mental health, all this shit. Like, I don't know how for 4 months you just practice
and sit there and have no family, or I don't really know how they would.
I don't know how it's gonna work at home.
Do any of that? Well, that's the thing too. It's not like you can just like uproot your family and like, oh, we're gonna be here for this season.
Well, yeah, right. But I mean
whatever,
that
right?
happens on the regular, right? Guys move, whatever. It is what it is, right? That's the NHL life. That's pro sports life as an athlete. Anyway,
don't worry,
right?
Corey Perry's wife will be there.
Yeah, Corey Perry's wife will find a way to follow him around. But it's one of those things where it's not that simple. And on top of that, as a team running your own team, if you have a guy that's just practiced for a month, how willing are you to throw him in the lineup when you absolutely have to just get to replace a guy that got injured?
Yeah.
So then how are you going to run it with, like, do you run it where you're like, okay, we have 6 guys that play on the bottom, like the 4th line. They just, kind of shuffle throughout for like in a 3-week tandem or something, right? Like those 6 guys play, 2 games every 3 weeks or something. You're like how do you keep guys fresh while they're just practicing? Like, it's very complicated, and as I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but like, man, to think that the NHL is going to start in 2.5 months.
I'm just
2.5 months seems like a long time, but like,
and it's
we've
not
already
only,
done this once.
It's not only like timing and coronavirus and all that. It's just like also just quality. Like I don't know if the quality. I don't know if I can deal with a season that's so much.
So let's get
different.
into this. Let's get into this realignment, because this is where I get into that, the quality, the whether, like, is this 82 game or whatever the hell game season bullshit or not?
Right.
Because to me, if you're gonna play these as divisional only seasons, fuck 82 games. That is so dumb.
Yeah, exactly. And then at that point, it's just like, what the fuck are we? What is this?
Why are we
this
doing
NHL? Is this an NHL season?
So for those that don't know, the AHL doesn't run anywhere close to the way the NHL runs, and I don't mean money wise. I mean it's partially money that drives this, but like the NHL, you have there's logic to the schedule, right? There's 2 games against every team, 1 home, 1 away. Your conference, I think it's 3 games a year.
Yeah.
And then your division is 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. The AHL doesn't do that. The AHL just plays games. They play, I think, 60 games or 70 games a season.
I think it's 71 or something.
Whatever. But it doesn't matter who they play. You play, generally speaking, whoever's closest to you and doesn't cost a lot of money to fly to. That's generally how it goes.
Yeah.
That's why it's hard to follow Calder stuff. Because you look at the Eagles, just hypothetically, the Eagles go on a run, they're first place in their division. Man, they're great. They go play a team from the East that's, 500 and get absolutely worked because the Eagles division sucks and that division in the East is good. And you're like, what the fuck? The Eagles were awful.
How did this
happen?
No,
it's because their division was awful and you thought they were better. Mm-hmm. And this is what happens in the AHL all the time. So if that's the thing, and yeah, we know the NHL, like, seeding doesn't really matter, especially if we look at 2 years ago. Then you look at this year, and it kind of was all out of whack. Edmonton lost to Chicago.
Right, yeah.
Does it actually matter what the 82 games beforehand means to seeding? Really, not really. It doesn't. Like, in reality,
as long as you're above the line.
As long as you make the playoffs, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if you're only playing 7 or 8 other teams this year, and they want to play 60 or 80 games, but it actually doesn't mean anything other than the fact that you have to finish top 3 to make the playoffs, or whatever it ends up being, top 4. Why? What the fuck is the point? What a waste of time. I don't give a shit about the regular season.
Yeah.
And as much as I want to watch hockey or play fantasy hockey or whatever, see the playoffs, if it doesn't have any resemblance to a regular season, and again, we've played a 48-game regular season before.
Yep.
And I've said it on here before, I enjoyed it because getting the playoffs faster is awesome.
Yeah.
I understand money-wise it's not beneficial.
Not ideal.
But when it comes to getting the playoffs, it's fun, it's faster. But that 48-game season, everybody still had to play everybody at least once, the play your division X number of times, the play your conference 2 times or whatever it was.
Right. The structure was there.
The structure was all the same.
Yeah.
And for like the NFL even, yes, they only play 16 games. Or is it 16 or 12?
18?
I don't even know. CFL's 18.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. But it's still, you play your division twice, you play the AFC once or the NFC, whatever. There's a method to the madness.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you can never have a balanced schedule, quote unquote, unless you played everybody equally as many times. But you can still never have an equally balanced schedule because that team that you end up playing, like the Arizona Coyotes. What in the world? Arizona Coyotes. If the Avs go and play the Arizona Coyotes in the midst of them being on a 7-game losing streak, it's very different to the running into the Arizona Coyotes on a 7-game winning streak.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You'll never have balance in that aspect, right?
Yeah.
You'll never, ever have it. But you need to have some sort of method to the madness to make it all seem fair, right? It's why when you look at the NHL standings and you go, man, this year, right? You look at what it was, like the playoff race for the 8th seed in the West versus the 8th seed in the East this year.
Yeah.
The points number was, 4 or 5 different. The points percentage around them was different. All that stuff, right? Like you look at the Jets and they were 0.001 percentage points out of a playoff spot.
Right.
And then you look at the East and it was like a shit show or something, right? Like it always happens that way. But when you look at the strength of the opponents, right? Everybody that's fighting for the same playoff spots go through the same shit show. Which, again, in this whatever shit show we end up seeing, it's not going to be Western Conference playoff spots. It's going to be divisional playoff spots.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you get to playing each other, you'll have no basis on anything, because what I find is like, okay, if the Avs went into playing, Dallas versus Vegas in the Western Final, you knew kind of semi what to expect because Dallas had played Vegas that year. But if you start getting into playoffs and you straight up haven't even seen that team in the second round, that's insane.
Yeah.
Why have a regular season at all?
Yeah, at that point, it's
right?
just like...
Especially like anything less or anything more than 40. Right? Like it's just when you start thinking about it like that, everybody and their dog had the Asterisk Cup as this year's playoffs.
Right.
I believe next year, or 2020 or 2021, whatever we call next season.
Yeah.
That's the asterisk, in my opinion. If we play these divisions the way they're going to be, I guess we haven't even touched on that.
Yeah, the full
but
Canadian...
the Canadian division, so... And, like, I understand, right? Like, we looked at it where we saw it with the MLB. The Blue Jays ended up playing in Buffalo because the Canadian government said, fuck that, we're not letting all these teams across the border.
Right.
I don't think that's the wrong decision. I don't know, man.
That's painful to think.
It's just,
about.
like, if it's Canucks, Calgary, Edmonton, Jets, Maple Leafs, Senators, and Canadians in one division, and they don't see anybody else all year, it's going to be boring. Like, you eventually, like, the Battle of Alberta, ooh, they've played this. This is the 7th time this season.
Yeah, 10th matchup.
Right? And you're just like...
82 games against, the same fucking 6 other teams.
You sit there and you watch, and you're like, Jesus Christ, man. Like, this just doesn't make any sense.
And then... like looking just at distance and travel, it's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Now, the good thing about travel is that it'd be easy enough to be like, okay, Winnipeg goes out west, Winnipeg goes out east.
Yeah.
Right? You do the 3-game set every time. It's no question. It's not hard to do. It's easy to schedule. I don't think travel is going to be as big of a deal because you also don't have to worry about venue issues because it's not like there's concerts happening.
Yeah, okay.
So I think travel actually might be okay.
I see that.
Right? It's going to be very easy to have like a 4-game road trip, or like for the Avs, San Jose, Vegas, LA, the Ducks, and Arizona. That's an easy 5-game road trip.
Yeah, true.
Every single time you have to go play them. Because I assume the schedule is going to be pretty standardized and you're going to have like 5 games against the same team. Okay, well, you do that road trip 5 times.
Yeah.
Bang. It's easy. You don't have to worry about, their building being available and stuff like that. I think
that's the interesting thing. Actually.
I think travel will be okay. It's just, man, like, imagine the Avs. So this is the Avs division. Minnesota, Colorado, Dallas, Arizona, Vegas, San Jose, LA, Anaheim. So you're telling me that we're not going to see the St. Louis Blues one time this year.
Right.
And then we're going to have to go in the playoffs and most likely battle with the St. Louis Blues. Or better yet, the St. Louis Blues division. St. Louis, Chicago, Nashville, fucking Florida, Tampa Bay, Detroit, Buffalo, Boston.
It's so weird. And then, you like think about Toronto and Montreal and that. You're not playing Boston and Buffalo and like the New Yorks. Like it's so fucking weird. And
like, let's not get into like I don't like change. That's not it. That ain't it. It's straight up like you're not going to see, like, especially for the Canadian division. right? Like you're gonna see it, but you're gonna see it like the first round of playoffs is gonna be the Canadian division against each other.
Yeah.
Not West versus East. It's gonna be like, how the hell do they do that? Right. So what? It's Canadian division versus Pacific in the second round.
Yeah.
Or something.
I don't know. And
right, and obviously this is very far away. Like,
yeah.
This is a very far look ahead.
But these are like questions that we need answers.
You have to answer that question before we start.
Yeah, like
this.
we need an entire template ready to go.
You can't in April be like, oh, this is how we're gonna do playoffs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there, guys.
Right? Yeah. So that's the thing, and like there's not going to be wild cards. There can't be a wild card team this year.
Yeah, how can there be?
You have like your first or second round of playoffs have to be inside your division.
Yeah.
Right? And you just
struggle.
That's why I don't know if I see this work out, but at the same time you can't have it so that like again, hypothetically like the way the Jays had to play this year where they just for the first bit of the season they played their home games at the team that was supposed to be away.
Right.
Like if they were playing the New York Yankees early in the season, they played in Yankee Stadium as the home team. I don't think you can do that and just have the Canadian teams just live it out in the States this year.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if that's really fair.
Well, that just brings upon a whole other schwacka issues.
And costs and all this stuff.
Like
and
practice facilities and all this kind of housing, all this.
We kind of talked about it with the NHL return to play for the playoffs. And we talked about it, before and after when the MLB was starting, when the NFL was starting. And it's going to be the same with the NBA starting because I know the NBA is going to try and do the same thing, play it around the same time as the NHL. And I guess I just contradicted myself because there is going to be venue issues because there's going to be NBA teams that have to play too.
Yeah, true.
But it's very different to try and finish a season in COVID times. We could straight up just not have an NHL season. And I understand the NHL is not going to be a fan of that because that's a lot of revenue that they're already losing. And what the hell do you do with all these contracts that just got signed?
Yeah.
But we've done it before with lockouts. We've done it before with strikes, all this stuff, right? It happens. When there's nothing on the line, like if this season just didn't happen, it would suck for us. It would suck as a fan. It would especially suck as an Avs fan where they're primed to win right now.
Yeah.
Yes, they got to get past the second round, but they're primed as a team. They're favorites for the Cup, or they were. I don't know if they still are after all the
who
signings.
knows what the odds are now, but yeah.
That would suck as an Avs fan because it's it's one of the prime years of a player's life, a player's career.
Mm-hmm.
But we said all the same things with the playoffs. But again, you don't have to worry about like, oh man, the trades that happened at the trade deadline. You just have to worry about trades that happen for 1-year players.
Yeah.
That's a lot less from what I've seen.
It's
the
easier.
Deals, whatever, they just didn't happen.
Yeah, it's easier to like reframe out, postseason, like after a season. Like it's doable in both senses. If there's a restructure of the season or if there's a postponement of a season. I don't know. It's a fucking headache, dude.
Rona doesn't give a shit about what you think matters.
Let's just get a fucking vaccine going, get the whole world cured, and then we can have our fucking hockey season back.
Wear your mask.
Yeah.
Don't be an idiot. Right? I mean, that's if New Zealand is having a great time. Just having a fantastic time. Why? Because they fucking listened, wore their masks, and just went with it.
Gotta wait it out, man.
Right? And they've had fans in their building for their game, like for their football games or whatever. I don't know if it's Aussie Rules football or whatever the hell they're playing.
Yeah.
But right, they've had this for months.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously that it's a smaller country, it's all kinds of different issues, right? But it'd be way easier if this just went away. And
yeah.
Just
it's crazy to think like I didn't think this was going to last this long, you know? I don't think a lot of people realize that this was going to be an issue for this long. And there's like no end in sight, dude.
Yeah,
so, like,
that's the thing. Like,
it's fucked now. We're getting to like,
the tunnel does not have a light.
Yeah,
right
really.
now. And it sucks, right?
Yeah. And then
I don't know. I don't want to get political, and I don't want to, but it's just. Oh, it'll deal with itself. That ain't fucking. That ain't true. That ain't. It's not fake, guys. Like.
Yeah. I don't think you can bring that card into the play anymore.
So it's it's that stuff. It's just. I don't know.
Fucking 2020, man.
Yeah.
I say it every episode, but fuck 2020, dude. I fucking hate this year. It's the worst.
I don't know. I just want to go to live sports again, and I don't want to deal with. I want normal, and
this is the new normal.
I don't know. I just
and see, that's the other thing too. Is like we talked at the start of the episode. Yeah, we got snow on the ground now. Where the fuck's the hockey?
Yeah,
like I noticed that yesterday, or was it 2 days ago when it started? Like the decent snowfall we had.
Yep.
And the first thing I thought about was like, oh yeah, okay, so like this is hockey season. Like whenever we have snow on the ground in Calgary and basically Canada, there's hockey on TV.
Or gonna be like right around the corner.
Yeah. It's like it's so weird. It feels even weirder now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like right after the season ended, it was like, okay, yeah, like it just ended.
I'm kind of sick of watching hockey in August. Yeah.
Yeah, that was another thing too, right? And then now it's like, this is hockey season. Where the fuck's the hockey? This is the 5th season. If if you're from Canada, you'd understand. It's Scotiabank, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
something.
The 5th. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, it's just it's one of those things, and I don't know. Again, right? You go back to the it would suck if the Avs win, or if the Avs lose a chance at the Cup this year because they cancel the season or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But and I don't think, like we talked about, I don't think Tampa's going to suffer that fate of the Asterisk Cup. I don't think that's going to be a thing.
No one better be saying that.
Yeah, I don't think so. But hypothetically, if that ends up being this season and the Avs win a cup, who gives a shit?
Yeah, see that this one would feel a lot more tainted,
right?
And a lot more
potentially,
gimmicky.
It potentially feels gimmicky, right? Like you look at the hockey, the World Cup of hockey, and how much people don't give a shit about that actually being a thing that you won.
True.
Right? Like if that's how this year's cup turns out, you might as well just cancel the season. I understand the players made some money along the way and that, but like if the NHL, like if the teams lose money,
well, I
for
feel
something
like
that doesn't really feel right, then what the hell's the point?
Well, like I feel like it's almost a guarantee. I haven't looked at the numbers, but I'm pretty sure I can say pretty confidently that there was less viewership this year.
Well, I think they said the cup
final.
I think they said that cup final was the worst worst numbers in like fucking 20 years.
Go figure, right? So, like, what do you think a fucking season that's all wacky is going to end up like in a situation where we're already no fans in the building and then we're going to have less fans watching on TV? Like, there's just so many issues. And, yeah, it's hard to have optimism right now. It's real hard to have optimism right now. And, I mean, we'll see, though. I mean, the NHL did a really good job with the bubble, and the whole playoffs honestly went a lot smoother, I think, than a lot of people thought. Definitely than I thought.
Dude, all the skeptics were like, Rona's going to kill somebody.
We didn't even have like any cases really at all. So, I mean, I want to believe. I want to believe in Gary and the boys, but it's going to be a struggle, and it's going to be. I just don't want it to be gimmicky and stupid.
That's it, right?
And not cared about.
Yeah, I've watched the NHL create a gimmicky event before.
We used to see it every year. the All-Star game.
Yeah,
fucking joke.
But right, like the World Cup of hockey was a gimmicky 14 days or whatever.
Yeah,
and it was still like hard to watch.
It was in a way, yeah.
Right,
it's kind of cool.
Imagine 3 or 4 months of that.
Yeah, it'd be so weird. I don't know.
Right? So I don't know. I hate ending like this. I hate
title of our episode. I don't know.
I don't know.
At this point, I don't know.
I thought I knew, but then I talked myself out of it all episode.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
But yeah, so, I mean, for those that are listening to this on Monday or this week, whatever, thanks for listening. For those that watched on YouTube or whatever, thanks for watching. I really hope we get some good news in a month or so.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, what did you say? November 14th is
apparently it's rumored.
kind of rumor. Yeah, we'll see about that.
I'm not holding my breath.
Exactly.
The biggest thing you can do to support us is by going to iTunes or Apple Podcasts and giving us a 5-star rating. Also, if you're looking to donate to the network, visit the Hockey Podcast Network's Patreon page. All donations go straight to the podcast host. Thanks, and see you next episode.
You're listening to the Hockey Podcast Network on Twitter @HockeyPodNet. New episodes every Monday and Thursday. Download at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from.